Welcome aboard, folks. I'm Stephen Malkowicz, your captain on this adventure called Ship of Fools. I'm a fool. Lucky for you, I'm not sailing solo. Join me and a boatload of people, all just trying to make sense of this crazy world. It's a fabulous mess, and you're invited. Welcome to Ship of Fools, where wit meets wisdom. We are blessed with
absolutely blessed
a local comedian, Rachel.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Welcome aboard this ship of fools.
So excited to be here.
I explained to you the premise when we were talking about it, but this is one of the things that I am extremely fortunate, and I'll say blessed, because I get to do this and talk to people that I find interesting. And you came up on my radar for whatever reason, but one of my things is comedy, and I like politics. I like a lot of things, and I know just enough about everything to be dangerous.
Yeah, gotcha. Or just enough about everything to get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, to get myself in trouble. So this is just, and like I said before, the conversation. This is a conversation. I love talking to comedians. And I find it very interesting when I run into them, because a lot of comedians, you figure, and I'm going completely off script. I just do this. I told you, so that I don't run on, which I'm doing right now.
Oh, we could cut all this.
But when I meet a comedian, it's always interesting because you expect them to be these extroverted people.
Oh,
and
no.
When in my travels over the years, because I've traveled a fair bit, you meet them at the airport, or you say, "Oh my God, that's," I remember it was the guy from chubby guy comedian from Saskatchewan, that Brett.
Oh yeah.
And I remember meeting him, and he was just like, "Oh, you're, whatever that show we did," and
Corner Gas.
Yeah, Corner Gas, and he was just like, go away.
Oh, no. I think I've met him too. I remember him being a lovely guy, but you're right that comedians are not the extroverts that you think they're going to be. Like, if we were extroverted, we'd be doing improv.
Yeah.
But stand-up, it's just us by ourselves. I think we all pick doing stand-up so that we can trick ourselves into thinking we can hold a conversation, but the conversation is just with your own brain on stage.
Okay, so let's Rachel. What I want to start off with, and one of my pet peeves has always been whenever, and I am a podcast junkie, and whenever I watch podcasts and they don't introduce the person that they're talking to or give a little bit of background about them, it aggravates me. Because I would like to know their name, first of all, and why that person is on the podcast and where they're from, a little bit of their background, so that I can put things into context as we're moving forward. Because, unfortunately, everybody is not like worldwide famous or recognizable. Nonetheless, they have an interesting story to tell. So I'll start off with you, Rachel, and you're a comedian, but let's go back. Where were you born?
I'm from here. I'm from Vancouver. I believe it was St. Paul's Hospital, if you want to go that far back. And then I grew up in Deep Cove in North Van.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted to do comedy. I didn't know that I always wanted to do comedy, and then I found jokes that I'd written in an old notebook from 7th grade, and they were really bad. But
were you funny in school?
I do remember that being the times in which I felt the most excitement for life was anytime you take a risk and just say that you have an intrusive thought that you're I want to say this out loud. I can't stop it. Here it is. Mm-hmm. And then people laugh, and then that does get addictive.
Did you ever, was this just with the fellow students, or did you get into any trouble with teachers or anything like that for being the class joker or the class clown?
I have a good, healthy mix of liking a laugh, but also loving a rule. I love rules. So no, I didn't really get into trouble in school. And I was a pretty good. I think I tricked teachers into thinking I was a good student because my older sister was like a really good student. And then I kept getting her old teachers.
Guilt
and
by association.
Yes. They were like, oh, you must be amazing because Madeline is so amazing. And then I never would do homework, but I would do well on tests. So I think that kept up the illusion that I was a good kid like my sister was, but it was a lie.
That can work in the reverse too if your older sibling was bad.
Totally. And you see that, and it's so unfair
in
in school. When you see kids that the teachers are really hard on, and you're like, yeah, that kid's maybe like a little bit difficult or disruptive, but not to the level of which you're upset.
Your last name in them, man. Yeah. That's what you're doing. I'm myself too. I have 2 older sisters. I have a middle sister who's really, really, her and I love her. She's my sister, but we have very, very little in common, meaning that she doesn't have a sense of humor like I do. She's very, she ended up getting her master's and she's a counselor and all those kinds of things. But to her, me growing up, I was like a heathen.
Yeah.
I was always, and the youngest and the only boy, and being, told constantly that there's a double standard in this house, that kind of thing, and so.
Like, what do you mean a double standard?
The
like
double standard, you're allowed. Yeah.
Like she had harsher rules.
Yeah, both my older sisters.
That is a lucky little sibling thing. Yeah. Is that the parents are tired by the time they get to us?
Yeah.
So we do get those different rules. Do you feel like it was also a gendered thing?
Oh, I think it was a 100% gendered thing because I have daughters. I have a daughter. Like I have 2 daughters. Like there's no. Of course, there was a double standard.
Yeah.
Like it just, I make no bones about it that, you're allowed to you can stay out past midnight and then dad will go looking for you and nobody gets into trouble. We try and do that and someone's getting beaten. You know what I mean? Like that kind of shit. Yeah. Like, cause they're, and Catholic too,
Oh, okay.
So it was that. And so I still, even though we're there's less time ahead of us than the past is. We've lived our lives, so to speak.
Right, we're cruising very swiftly towards death.
That's correct.
Yeah.
They still throw that up in my face that you're the one that can't. It's not my fault. That's not my fault. No, don't blame that on me. But I'm digressing here. So okay, you finish up school. You remember writing jokes. Did you go to school? Did you go to post-secondary? I'm going in here blind here. I'm asking questions.
I have like pretty bad ADHD that like went very undiagnosed for a very long time. So I was a good student in that like I would test very well and I would get good grades, but I was like always doing my homework at like 4 a.m. the day before it was due because I just like couldn't fathom doing something before the deadline was like completely imminent. And then because I got like good grades, my teachers and I feel like everyone around me really assumed I would go to university, but I like had no idea where to even go about doing that. Like in my head, it was just like all of a sudden everyone in my grade had like applied and like chosen what they wanted to do in the next year. And I was like, what? Like, when did we all know how to figure that out? And then I remember teachers like, I also knew I didn't want to go to university immediately after high school because I was like, that just seems like an expensive way to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. You don't really know. But I did also really want to I did already know I wanted to be an actor. And I do think there is this like weird thing about being a human where you just always feel like it's too late. Like you feel like you're too old. Like even like at like 17 graduating high school, I was like, if I don't start acting right now, like I'm going to be too old. Like I was like, there's already child stars. They're all ahead. And so it's this weird, you feel it. And now I'm like, oh my God, 18's a baby. Like you can do anything at any time. But no, I wanted to go, I wanted to try to be an actor. And I do feel like, it's interesting that we were talking about following in your siblings' footsteps and like getting last named in a good way where like people think you're a good student because of your older sister being a good student. And it made me think like yeah, it was just kind of a different version of like a Nepo baby. It's just being like an 8-year-old to like your 12-year-old counterparts really good habits. Because I think now too, I think about the idea of Nepo babies a lot in that like when celebrities, it is really annoying when celebrities try to deny any leg ups they had from their parents of they're like, oh no, I had to work twice as hard because everybody, you know, had this idea of me that I like got this unearned success. And it's like, well, no, you didn't have to work twice as hard. Like, we're not even like denying their talent. We're just saying like, just admit that like getting in the door is half the battle. Sure. All we want is for you to be like self-aware. We're not even telling you to go away. Yeah. But I think about like, there's so many different levels to what a Nepo baby is. And I would actually consider myself one in a way, because my dad also worked in newspapers like you, and he was an entertainment reporter for the province newspaper for like decades. And it wasn't that like, you know, him working for like a local Vancouver newspaper like got me jobs, but it's like just the idea of like knowing that real people are the people you see in movies, because like it was back when, you know, newspapers had budgets to like throw around. So they would send him to, you know, film festivals.
Yeah, you might go down to Hollywood.
Yeah, and he's interviewing like big people, and then he comes back with all these stories. And he's like, so and so's a buffoon, like, and then he just makes them sound like real people. So I always kind of had this idea in my head that, you know, like if people grow up in the middle of nowhere, they're like, that's not even real. Like that career is not for me. I can't do anything in entertainment. But just like growing up in a city that has a film industry, and then also growing up with parents who like knew that it's real people that do those jobs. And so like my parents were always very encouraging of kind of whatever I wanted to do. So when I didn't want to go to university, they were like, yeah, no worries. Like, cool. What do you want to do? And then I was like, well, I think I want to be an actor. I want to go to acting school. So I did that. And my mom and my dad were both always very like, well, somebody has to do this. Like, why not you? That was so long-winded. I'm sorry.
No, I get it. But I one of the comments I wanted to make was whenever you talk about a Canadian comedian, this is me, and it might be a stereotype where I go a bona fide Canadian comedian, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you say that, when you think about that, oh, you're Canadian and you earn a living being a comedian? Whoa, really? And that's stereotypical, I think, to an extent. Am I making that up?
Well, I think you mean that like people are surprised that you can make money in Canadian comedy?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, they're 100% right. There's not a lot of money to be made in Canadian comedy.
Okay.
But I do also think that like comedians at every level, like whether you're a famous like American comic or like a mid-level anywhere comic, comedians at every level are making their money in a lot of different ways. So it's no different really to Canadian comedians. Like you don't make a ton of money in Canadian comedy because there's just not as much industry up here as there is down in the States. But there is like money to be made, and you tour, and you have to do it for the love of the game. Yeah. But you know, like super famous comedians, they make their money. They all have a podcast. Yeah. They maybe like write on TV shows. They do commercials. They get like little parts in shows and movies, and they also tour, and they also get money from radio. So you kind of like, yeah, you just get this weird little pile of money from all these different areas, and it's the same for people up here. So for me, like, I do have a day job. I used to work at a bridal store, and now I work at a brewery. And,
what brewery?
Brass Neck. I love it. Come visit.
Okay.
It's really good. Our beer is really good. But I like couldn't pay for my life by doing any one of the things that I do. Like all together, I like make a fun living. And by like doing comedy, getting commercials every once in a while, booking like a comedy taping of some kind. I'm about to put out an album. So cool. Yeah, and I've been on the radio before for like compilation albums through Just for Laughs. So it's just like all these different areas of, you know, income streams that like add up together. And for me, it really works to, I think for a lot of comics, it's kind of good that you keep a day job for as long as you can, because then you're more a part of the world and you have more to talk about. You see that with like comedians that get really big, where their first special that really blows them up is so good because they're talking about being a real person and what real life is like. And then not every big comedian, but a lot of them, when they go on to make like future specials, they get like less and less good because like A, they're just a rich person now who has less to talk about. And then B, they have too much of a built-in fan base, so it's harder for them to test material and get honest feedback because people are just excited to see them, so they'll just laugh. Yeah, so I feel like I like having day jobs because it gives me more to talk about. And then also the ADHD thing kind of comes into play again, and I'm way more productive if I know that like 4 days out of the week I've got to be somewhere else like pouring beers, and I know I have limited time. I did take a year off once to like just focus on stand-up and comedy because I had like gotten a few bookings that year, and I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I need to like throw myself into it 100%, and I need to like write a pilot. And then that year was like the least productive year of my life because I didn't have a day job. And then the next year I was like, okay, now I'm out of money. Now I really need a job again. And then I got a job, and then I wrote a pilot like between So
I wanted to talk about markets. I'll expose my bias. I hate Toronto.
Classic Vancouver. Vancouver people hate Toronto. Toronto doesn't give a thought about us.
But which is a better market from a comedian's perspective? And I grew up in Winnipeg, so we grew up. There's a lot of things that us Winnipeggers grew up on, and that was comedy and fighting. And I mean fighting, boxing. We used to, there was a big boxing community.
Wow. I did not know that about Winnipeg.
Yeah, lots of boxing clubs.
Did you box?
No. And
who do you think you could beat in a fight? Where do you think the line is?
Well, who do I think I could beat in a fight?
Yeah.
Well, I think I could take Trisha.
Okay.
I think I could.
I think people wouldn't like that, but you could probably take Trisha.
But if we're talking about males, what I used to say, the boys I certainly couldn't. They'd beat the shit out of me. I'm talking about my sons, who I could take in a fight. That's a push, man. Because I'm a dirty fighter too.
Oh, okay. Well, you have to be if you're not going to win a lot of fights. Because
I'm dirty.
You got to stay alive.
I'll just. But I don't. That's a good question.
Like, do you think you could take like Jay Baruchel?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, he's a very gangly Canadian comedian.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about.
Do you think you could take Graham Clark? He was on your podcast.
I think I could.
I don't know. I feel like Graham Clark. I think he's going to hide his punches in his beard, and they're going to come out of nowhere through the hair.
Simon, he would be. He seems like a hair puller.
I feel like you could maybe take Simon. I feel like Simon, because he has this big boisterous personality on stage, I feel like maybe, but I think he's hiding like an inner soft sweetie.
Yeah.
And I think you could take him.
Yeah.
Graham Clark, I think he's an outer soft sweetie.
He's got that
I feel
beard,
like it's maybe scrappy on the inside.
You got that beard you could grab.
You could grab the beard. Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
That's
what
true.
An interesting question. Nobody's ever asked me that before, who I think I'd take. But anyway, back onto Winnipeg. So, and where I was going with this was a better market. Like, for a working comedian in Canada? Would it be better to be? Is it better to be in Toronto or is it better to be in Vancouver?
It's probably better to be in Toronto.
Okay.
There's way more industry out there for comedy. Like, Just for Laughs is so much closer to there being in Montreal, and I feel like the Toronto branch of Just for Laughs is larger, I would say, than the Vancouver branch of Just for Laughs, because we each have our own, like, obviously Just for Laughs Montreal is like the big one, and then there's Just for Laughs Vancouver, there's Just for Laughs Toronto, and they all do a great job, but Toronto's just a bigger city. And I would say also that, like, as somebody who works a little bit in, also don't want to blow that out of proportion, works barely at all in television.
Okay.
There's definitely a lot more like sitcoms, comedy shows in Toronto than there is in Vancouver, which was honestly like helpful for me in starting comedy in Vancouver, because when I like started in acting, because I felt like what I really did want to do was stand-up comedy. But I mean, I also love acting and I do want to be an actor, but it's easier to start acting than it is to start stand-up. It's scarier to start stand-up because you have to like write a set, find an open mic, say words the audience knows that you wrote that you think are funny, gross, most cringe thing I can possibly think a human could do. And then acting, it's like you just have to take a class and they'll kind of tell you like, oh, these are agents to submit to. This is where to get your headshots. Like it's very like someone can kind of lead you through that process. So I started in acting, but it's lower, like it's easier to enter, but also harder to enter in that like once you have an agent, you still have to wait for somebody to like let you act and like give you auditions. And then because Vancouver was such a CW town when I was, you know, in my early 20s and still kind of is today, all of my friends in acting were like so hot and getting so many jobs immediately. And this is just not a CW knows, Steven. And I know that. And that's fine. So I was getting like 4 auditions a year and it was breaking my heart until I was finally like, okay, like this is killing me. I've always wanted to do stand-up. I have to do it. And then stand-up just kind of like saved me emotionally and creatively because you can decide when you do it and just go out and do shows and book your own shows, go to open mics, be on other people's shows. There's no like audition process. And you're like, it's to as big of a degree as it can be, it is a meritocracy. So the better you are, the more you get to do. But like in Toronto, there's way more comedy auditions that I could have possibly been getting. So maybe I would have started stand-up later had I been there. So to me, I think it worked out great. And also, I like the crowds here. Yeah. Like there's more industry in Toronto. But I can tell, and this is not a knock on Toronto comics. There's so many Toronto comics that I think are so funny. Like some of the best in the world. So diplomatic. But but I will say that like sometimes Toronto comics come to Vancouver and do our shows and I can hear that they're from Toronto. Like, and I would have guessed, and they would say the same thing about us, I think. Like, I would say Toronto comics are way more polished than Vancouver comics because they have more industry. There's more that they can get like booked to tape and do. And they're always aware of the industry around them because it's so present. Whereas in Vancouver, it's like, we're all so excited and feel so lucky and like chosen when we get like plucked to do like a JFL or a CBC taping. But we're not aware of it all the time throughout the year. So our comedy is very like silly and bizarre. And like, I really love the Vancouver style of comedy and I love Vancouver audiences. Like they're very down for things that are silly and weird. And they're kind of a hard crowd. Sometimes, so the best thing in the world is when comics from LA come up to Vancouver and they kind of are this like, I'm from LA kind of vibe, and they think they're just going to immediately crush in Vancouver, and it's my favorite thing in the world to watch an LA comic shit the bed in Vancouver. Ugh. Mwah. So juicy.
So I'm going to ask, this is out of pure sheer ignorance, because I'm a suburb guy, and have been ever since like 1994 when I moved out here from Winnipeg.
I mean, I grew up in Deep Cove, so I'm a suburb gal as well.
And so, are there a ton of open mics in downtown Vancouver?
Oh yeah, okay. No, you could do comedy every day of the week here. Okay, for sure.
I didn't. Because I feel like now when I go downtown or go to the North Shore, I feel like I have to pull my passport out. Sometimes you do. I don't know.
I don't know if you can do an open mic every day of the week here, but you can do an open mic most of the days of the week here, and there's like booked shows every day of the week for sure.
Okay. What was interesting, what I found really interesting, and I'll bring up Simon for this discussion. He said if he had to rely on doing like actual venues, he'd die and quit, because what he does is bars.
Yeah, he does Yorkton, great in a bar.
Yeah, in Yorkton and places like, I remember when I first started talking to him, he's going, I'm playing in Medicine Hat. I go, well, we own the paper in Medicine Hat. Holy shit, are you kidding me?
Awesome. That's rad.
I went, what do you, like, so when he came in, we were talking about that. He said, I just stand up. Everybody's drinking beer and standing around, and I do my show and my rant. And
yes,
he is pretty funny when he gets going.
Oh, totally. And he like does thrive with like a semi-hostile crowd. A bar is great for him. Yeah. I feel like he's so perfect to watch when you're close to him too. Like it's such a different experience to have him just like screaming at you 2 feet away. Whereas like if he would still do amazing, but but it would be a very different experience to watch him in like a huge theater, like at like House of Comedy in New West. Like, and he does do really well there too, but it's like, I mean, really for any comic, the most fun way to watch comedy is like intimate and
tight,
small and
really
tight.
And that's how, like, I grew up, when I was going to university, we used to go to Yuck Yucks, and Rumors Comedy Club in Winnipeg, and where I saw a lot of like people that came through that ended up being game show hosts, in LA, like Bizarro, like the black guy that does the whatever, I think it's Family Feud. He was a comedian. I don't know.
Oh, Steve Harvey?
Yeah, I saw him.
Yeah.
Like when he was nothing, and he was funny, everybody was drunk, but like, and that's funny too. I love that. That's why we grew up on it. First of all, the reason we used to go to open mics is because the beer was really cheap, and you could get popcorn, and you didn't realize you were eating the popcorn to make you thirsty.
Yeah.
And you drink more draft beer, and at that time they used to sell it for like 5 or 10 cents a glass, so you could get plastered on a Monday or Tuesday night and find anything funny.
This is also so funny just to imagine like a struggling new comic up on stage doing open mic comedy to just so much crunching in the crowd.
Oh yeah. And heckling, like horseshit heckling, like just
devastating,
stupid. I had a friend that was 6'8" who, his capacity for liquor consumption was ridiculous. He'd stand up and end up getting thrown out or whatever. But heckling is funny. That's really, really funny.
Oh yeah. I did one of the first show that I ever ran. I had moved to Vancouver at this point and was doing comedy regularly. I'd maybe been doing it for like a year. So I was still very new, and I like had looked around in the scene and like realized that like the way to get booked on more people's shows is to like be more of the community yourself and run your own shows, because then you give other people spots and they want to give you spots back.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, where should I run my show? And I thought, oh, I'm from Deep Cove and there's no comedy down there. There's no shows. Wouldn't the people of Deep Cove love it if I started doing a comedy show at the local pub, The Raven, which is the only place to drink in the Cove on a weekday, or was at that time. And obvious to everybody but me, no, people would not love that, actually. People want to go to the pub to talk to their friends. They don't want to listen to you. The very first one that we put on, it was like, the bar manager was very down with the idea of having comedy. Like, he was a comedy fan. He wanted to support it. He wanted to do it. So he was like, yes, like, we wanted tickets to be cheap. They were $5. But comedy does work better when people have paid for the show, because then they feel like they have a little bit of personal investment in it and they have to listen to it. So the bar manager was like, yes, like, that's cool. Like, everyone who's in the bar has to pay $5. Like, you have my permission to do that. Go around, tell everybody that there's going to be a comedy show. And we had we had put posters up in the bar the month before. We'd postered all around the community month before. Nobody looks at posters. So the bar was like full that night, with like a huge amount of people. And me and my like show running partner, Sean, we walked in and we were like, wow, Deep Cove does love comedy. No, there was like a huge group of construction workers that were like off shift in the middle of the bar, taking up like the biggest tables, like drinking and like, rah, like getting really rowdy.
You were aggravating them.
And then yes, absolutely. And then around them was like a ton of like young adult, like women, because their like soccer league had finished and they were like there for their like end of year soccer team drinks, and then various other groups of people, and everyone is like so mad as I'm coming around being like, hey, so there's gonna be a comedy show, and they're all like, okay, that's fine. And I'm like, so actually you have to give me $5. And they're like, we actually don't want to watch the show. And I'm like, but because you're here, you actually have to watch the show. So you have to give me money you don't want to give me, and you also have to stop talking to your friends, which you don't want to do, and you have to listen to me, who's a year into comedy and not very good yet. And everybody gives me these $5. We start the show. It's immediately like so tricky. I'm hosting, I'm like trying to like get people going, get people engaged, like get people to like listen and also shut up. But I don't have a face that like people want to listen to when you tell them to shut up. And then everybody, like, we had a lineup of maybe like 7 comics. And the first 2 comics, like they were funny, like people were half like I would say like a third of the crowd maybe is watching and laughing. And then but they're all like the people who are watching are like struggling to hear because everybody else is yelling. And then the third comic to go up, bless his heart, his name's Ed Kanya. He was kind of like a little bit of like he was the guy that looked like he would have the most authority on our lineup. He was like the oldest man. He was like in his like 50s. And he starts, he just like wasn't, and he had run an open mic for years at that point. So he was used to like dealing with like shitty crowds and like getting people, not necessarily getting people on board, but getting people in line. And he just like starts like badgering this like middle huge table of construction workers and is like gets in this huge back and forth with them. And like the guys like just refuse to like listen to the show. They're still talking to each other. And then Ed Kanye's like, hey, neck tattoo, shut the fuck up. And this guy and I'm like, words that a comedian should never say to a stranger is, hey, neck tattoo. And the man stands up, is just massive and is like, but it's also like this weirdly like the sweetest, most Canadian angry crowd interaction ever, because this guy is like, half your shit isn't even funny, man, and walks at him. I thought he was going to stab him. And then just like at the very end of like the road to the stage, right before he gets to Ed, he takes like a little turn and goes to the door because the stage was right before the door. And he just like walked out and left. And we were all sitting there being like, he thought half his shit was funny. That's so funny.
What was the reaction of the crowd?
The crowd was like, everybody thought Ed was about to get stabbed. And then he left. But then at the end of the show, so the show like did continue, like it was a pretty good show. It ended up being pretty good. At the end of the show, I'm talking to the bar manager and I was like, so thank you so much for letting us do this. And please let us do it again next month, as we've already discussed. I feel like we're locked in on that. Are we locked in? And he was like, oh, yeah. He was like, so sorry. The crowd was like so tricky tonight. Like those guys, like I tried to tell them before, they're like regulars here. And we also don't want to be like messing with this bar's regulars. Like you don't want to be messing with them. Yeah, it's not good for the bar. And he was like, yeah, those guys are regulars. They are really nice, but sorry they were so difficult during the show. They didn't expect the show, and they usually come here after work. And this particular week, they actually kind of came after work to like hang out and talk about their friend who just died.
Oh, shit.
And and I was like, oh no.
It's kind of
so
shitty.
Really like, we're the assholes in this scenario. This is your regular bar that you live here. You come after work like every week. And then all of these friggin' uppities come in from Vancouver with their little jokes, and you're wanting to like memorialize your friend at your favorite bar, and we intrude on your space and we're like, hey, how dare you talk while I'm talking? And they're like, what the hell is happening? So, you know, comedians are not always in the right just because we're the ones with the microphone. Yeah. And we can admit that.
That's great. That's a great story. That is a fantastic story, Rachel. I want to bring you back to one thing. When did we officially, you refer to yourself as an actor? Okay.
I do.
Now, I'm just, this is the only reason I'm doing it. I don't want to create any
drama in my life.
Yeah. But, you know, growing up, for me, it was always actor, actress. When did that change? When did that officially, because I'm always, like, I talk to my daughters, they don't think I'm hip. They don't think I'm cool. But I always, like, I'm always asking these questions.
Yeah.
You know, so when did that,
it's a fair question.
When did that happen?
I'm 34, and I feel like it must have happened like right before I started acting. Like, and I started at 19. So, in a serious way, I started at 19. And I feel like you're not wrong if you say actress. Like, you're not being offensive if you say actress.
I'm not wrong if I...
No, if you call me an actress, like, I guess it sounds weird to my ears just because, like, it's never naturally the word I pick, but I wouldn't be like, oh, like, it's not going to make anybody mad. And still, like, the awards are separated that way, like best actor, best actress.
They still follow that?
Yeah. Like,
see, I don't watch the...
And it is kind of weird. It's good and bad, because I think that it's like, this isn't a sport. Like, we don't have different, like, we don't have like in sports, like, I get there's like men swimming and women swimming, because like if we were, like, I get that like, you know, our bodies have different capabilities. And this is not me making a comment on trans athletes in sports. I think trans athletes should absolutely be allowed in sports. But in like I get why there is like, I do. I'm like, please don't come for me. I am for trans athletes in sports. But you know what I mean? Of like, I get why there's like men swimming and women swimming. And then, but for like best actor and best actress, it's like, why aren't we all just judged on the same plane? Like, why isn't there just one award? But like the patriarchy is still a thing that imprisons us all to this day. So if we did make it one category, like, I mean, as you see with like best director, then it would be like presumably dominated by the male actors. Which is ridiculous because even as like, you know, like a small scale actor who goes out for a lot of like one-liners, the guy one-liners are all like, you went that way. And the girl one-liners are all like, my baby. So the parts are a lot harder for women. Men get to like really experience grief and sadness with stoicism in film. And women do not get that luxury.
I'll go with you on that. I'll agree with you on that. I'll agree. So back to, you know, you and your story. The plan was you were always comedy. You remember writing jokes when you're in like grade 7.
Yeah.
I think.
My family was very funny. We all loved to talk. Like it was like hard to get like a word in my family. And we were all just like, I also feel like I was very lucky to grow up in a family where it felt like we were all friends. Like the four of us would like, I feel like at the end of every day, we just started doing this like weird tradition, like not even starting when we were children. I feel like it started when we were like preteens or teens, where it's like once like my parents would go to bed like a little bit earlier than me and my sister would. And like they would like brush their teeth and get ready for bed, and then me and my sister would just be like sitting on their bed in our jeans, and we're all just like yapping about the day,
and funny shit about the day.
Yeah, and funny shit about the day. And there was a period of time where my like uncle lived with us because he was, and that was like when I was a kid. My uncle lived with us for like 6 months out of the year because he was going to school in Vancouver to be an electrician, but he lived in Kelowna. So he would just like live in our basement, and he was like the funniest person I'd ever met. And I just remember like sitting at dinner, like howling every day because my uncle was so funny. So like always it felt like, and we're a family with people with big noses. So it just felt like we were not a family being like
small beak here, Rachel.
So you get it. We just weren't a family like cherishing each other for how adorable we were. Like you had to have other skills and qualities. So it was always very much like a social currency, being funny. And it helps you in school too. If you're not like a cute kid, if you want any friends, if you suck at running and you're not adorable, then like you got to have something else.
Yeah. So influences on you from a comedic sense and an actor's perspective when you were young. Talk about those for a little bit. Like who did you, when you were growing up, because there's a bit of an age gap between us here, and I'm thinking, a little bit. Like I'm a lot younger than you,
right? Okay,
but well, comedic influences. You had said you're mid-30s kind of thing. Who were comedians that you were looking up to, and that you? And I'm not talking locally. I'm talking North American, hell, European for all I know.
Totally.
But who comes to mind when I ask you that question?
Yeah. I didn't have TV growing up because my dad he was a movie critic and he had to go see a lot of movies. So then he would say that he didn't want TV at home.
It's probably not a bad thing.
Yeah, probably not a bad thing. I also, it was fine because we had a lot of movies, and like I was going to movies all the time because he had to go to so many movies. So I feel like I was seeing like a movie every 2 weeks when I was a kid because he didn't want to go alone. He would take us, and he had this like card that they would give like entertainment press that like got you into movies for free.
And he could bring you.
And he could bring me, yeah. So we were there all the time. And he was never looking at ratings either, which I feel like was like a key aspect to my cinematic development too, was that like he took me to a lot of movies that he did not look up beforehand because he had to go see it. He wasn't going because he'd like heard about a movie and knew everything about it and knew not to take a child. He was going because he was told, go see that movie. So I saw a lot of like, quote unquote inappropriate movies for a child. And I did not grow up to be a serial killer. So I'm not really, I feel like I'm a testament to not censoring in front of children. But we didn't have TV. I feel like my first real look at stand-up was when YouTube got big. And I remember like being in the library in high school and like kids like gathering around and like showing each other like Jim Gaffigan's like Hot Pockets. But I really loved, also you could download comedy on like LimeWire. And I downloaded a lot of like, I remember starting with downloading a lot of like Dane Cook, which, you know,
he was
no
a funny
shame.
guy.
He was funny.
He's a funny guy.
I don't like
What
when
happened to
people
him?
try to pretend later that they never thought someone was funny. Like if somebody becomes cringe now, that because his comedy style is very big.
Yeah.
So like comedy nerds, I feel like shit on him a lot because they're like, he's so broad. It's just like, it's all like, he's getting a laugh because he's just doing these huge things with his body. Like it's not about the joke or anything. And I'm like, it was a little bit though. You were laughing. Like, don't lie to me. Just don't look at me in the eye and lie. So I'm not going to look you in the eye and lie and tell you that I wasn't laughing at the LimeWire download of the BK Lounge.
What happened to him? What was the shit? Something, because I can't keep track of. Like,
well, he did marry a very young woman recently.
Okay. But did he get Me Too'd or?
It's not, well, they're married, but everyone's like, didn't you meet her when she was like 17 and at a game night? And he's like, yeah, but we didn't date until she was 18 and one day. And everyone's like, well, that's not great.
Okay.
But but I would say that like, so I listened to him a little bit on LimeWire, but I feel like really like the first person I remember like loving was like Katt Williams. Who is like also a very physical comic, but like I stand by him to this day. He's so funny. So I would say like those would be earlier influences in comedy for me. And then also, you know, you watch a lot of like Looney Tunes cartoons. Like we had like VHS cartoons of that. So, cause I mean, again, I didn't have TV, but we had that. Like I remember having like the VHS of like Donald Duck and Mathmagicland. And all of those kinds of like old school cartoon styles are very like set up punch. So it is really educational in your brain for joke writing. And I loved the Muppets and
The Muppets are great.
The Muppets are great. And then I also loved that like early like Brendan Fraser, Elizabeth Hurley movie Bedazzled, which now I go back and I watch and I'm like, wow, like I knew I loved that movie at the time, but going back and watching it now, I'm like, wow, like those when you're a kid and some people put on costumes, like this is how we all end up like thinking Santa is real. Though side note, I never thought Santa was real, and we can come back to that if you want to, but and it kind of is related, but you know, when like people put on a costume and kids like don't understand that that's the same person. I remember like watching Bedazzled like a little bit later in life and being like, oh, those actors that like play the jerks in the beginning of the movie are also playing the people in every different like wish scenario that he has. And they're just these like amazing improv actors playing like 5 different characters in the movie. And so is Brendan Fraser. He crushed that movie. So yeah, like the idea of like characters and like comedy and like, film and TV was like always around, and then stand-up coming later was just like magic.
Your comments on your father and not like paying attention to ratings. I grew up, my father owned a drive-in theater and a movie theater.
Wow. That's so cool.
I saw movies over and 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 over.
Yeah.
And I became such a nerd to that drum that when I went away to university, I used to go to movies by myself. Like, because I just, it was an irritant to have somebody beside me. You know, I just wanted to watch the movie.
I'm so the same. Shut up. Don't talk to me.
Don't talk to me.
Don't breathe weird.
Yeah. Just don't make weird sounds.
No.
I just want to watch the movie. But I never, I was fortunate because there was movies that were rated however they were rated. I remember my father taking us into Winnipeg, because I grew up in southern Manitoba, to go see the movie Slapshot. And what he used to do was, because we were in a town that was it was located very close to a very religious Mennonite town called Winkler, Manitoba. We're in Morden, Manitoba, and all the people from Winkler used to come to Morden to watch the movie. He also owned a bar, a hotel, and he used to come there to drink.
Awesome.
Okay,
Man,
so,
you must have saw some shit growing up too.
yeah,
Movies aside.
yeah. So we would go in, and if I was lucky enough, because I was the youngest and my older sisters were away already, we'd truck into Winnipeg, and he took my mother and I to see Slapshot. We waited in line at the Metropolitan Theater in downtown Winnipeg, and it was like, because it was the shit. It had Paul Newman in it, and it was a hockey movie, Canada, all that kind. And holy shit, like that was I think I was like 13, something like that, and going, because he was deciding whether or not he was going to bring the movie out.
Right.
He did.
Yeah.
And made out like a bandit, like It was crazy. And in those days, you used to, like, I shouldn't say this, but you like the earlier a movie came out, the way it used to work is the bigger the percentage of the pot you had to give to the distributor.
Right.
Okay. So if you Red Hot one, you're talking maybe 70 points. So you're only keeping 30. And as it progressed and would go down.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got it right away. So I think we showed it for maybe 4 weeks. Like it was packed. So I watched that movie over and over and over and over and over again. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of, so I'll jump forward. I never look at ratings. And when my kids were little, I took them to see Team America. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah. World Police. Yeah. You're like, it's puppets. What?
Exactly. And that was a bad decision.
They're fine.
It was,
Do you have any serial killer children? You don't. They're fine.
Like, I thought it was funny as shit,
you go.
But the other half didn't think it was so funny. And the kids, and even Family Guy, like I still have the box set of Family Guy. I think Seth MacFarlane's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like I just like Family Guy, and like, everybody watches reruns of Family Guy because it's, you got a talking dog, for Christ's sake. It's hilarious,
I love that. That's your pull for why Family Guy rocks. It's a talking dog. Yeah. What's funnier than that?
And the thing is that when you talk about Family Guy, like we own a bunch of newspapers in New England and Rhode Island specifically. The people that live there are actually like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
They are. They
all have talking dogs.
Right. But they drive with their phone like this, and they tailgate, and just like Lois, and I know Jody watches this. Jody is Lois. She runs our Rhode Island operations.
Really?
Oh yeah, shit, yeah. Jesus, my wife will talk to she's Lois.
That's so funny.
And you run into these characters, and he went to the Rhode Island School of Design, and it's hilarious. And we also own the newspaper in Pawtucket, the Pawtucket Brewery. So it was all kind of, it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was serendipitous that I got to do that. And, so anyway, I want to talk about the life of a touring Canadian comedian, specifically as it relates to, like, I remember I had Lee Aaron on. You know who Lee Aaron is?
No, I'm not familiar.
She was an iconic metal queen in Canada.
Well, yeah. I just showed my whole ass then.
That's all right.
Damn it.
But I was very interested because, and it wasn't, and it's self-admittedly, not necessarily about the music. I was more interested in her story because she toured Canada, and her whole her thing was she's a very attractive woman, and she used to play in peeler bars. That was the tour, like that you were doing.
Love the term
peeler
peeler bars.
Yeah, like you got.
Let's bring that back.
And all of a sudden, like, so there'd be a bunch of guys drinking in the bar, and you can imagine the guys that start drinking at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and then all of a sudden this good-looking girl comes out with a band, and they're like screaming, "Take your clothes off!" She played those bars, and that was the circuit.
Yeah, that'll harden you. I was
like,
way.
My God, shit! I never even thought of that because I thought of half of the bands that I used to see coming through Winnipeg. They were at strip clubs. They were, So I'm not saying that you play at strip clubs. What I'm saying
there is a comedy club above the Penthouse.
Okay.
And it's called Tyrant Studios. And I've done a lot of shows above the Penthouse, and it is, well, I feel like I'm getting profiled in a way that I don't enjoy when I go there, in an opposite way than you might think. Because I'll walk up and the bouncer will always be like, "The comedy show," and I'm like, I could be here for the other stuff. And but I go up and I do the comedy show, and I remember one time like leaving the show, and I was like standing out just outside the Penthouse, like on my phone, like getting an Uber or something, and then this like somebody walked past me and was like, hey, like great job up there. And then like other people were on the street and like looked at me and I was like, that's right. I could be doing anything in there, but yeah,
that's cool.
Lived for that.
So looking beyond Vancouver, if you tour Canada,
yeah,
what's the touring life of a comedian like in this country?
So you would get a very different answer to that talking to Graham Clark or Simon King, like I know that you have, because like they've been in comedy way longer than I have, and they're a little bit older than I am. How much nobody knows. And so they've done a lot of like Canadian touring, but as somebody who started in the last 10 years, I like have done comedy in other places and some touring, but it's less, there's good and bad things about the comedy landscape now and how it's changed from 15 years ago. When I started comedy, there was very much this like idea of, there were less women in comedy when I started, and there's so many starting now, which is so great. Because when I started, there were very few of us in Vancouver, and it felt like there were fewer spots for all of us. Like we didn't even get to like really hang out with each other that much because it's like there would be one woman booked per show. And then you get this like weird vibe of like competition between the women in your city because you're like, we all know there's one of us on each show. And it just doesn't really like foster a great environment for friendships between the women comics. But now that like to me, that's gone. Like the vibe is so great now. So many women start. We're all friends. Everybody's rooting for each other. Like there's enough room for all of us now. Shows feel very like half and half a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time. Like it's not weird to go to a show and have the lineup be like most wheelie women and a couple guys. Like we're even now at the point where the audience won't notice. Like back when I started like right at the end of, and I'm glad I did because I like getting to see the progression. When I started, it was really hard to be a woman starting comedy because you did feel like you got on stage and the audience was like automatically against you, consciously or unconsciously. Like it did feel like everybody would sort of like you would get announced, your name is a feminine name, you get up there and it just felt like a room of guys in backwards baseball caps kind of crosses their arms and you have to convince them that you're funny,
that you're not almost like you're stereotyped.
Yeah,
you're a female comedian.
Also, like I mean, yeah, stereotyped for like what you're going to talk about, but also like even the stereotypes of, you know, what they assume you're going to talk about. I think those subjects that they would assume I was going to talk about are funny subjects. Like the audiences had to change as well to like male audience members had to get used to putting themselves in other people's shoes because, which is not their fault. Like since the beginning of time, media has been for them and they just get shown what it's like to be in their own shoes all the time. And they're like, that's so funny. I relate to that. And then they have to like kind of retrain their brain to be like, oh, what are other people's experience? Yeah. Oh, that's funny to hear about. But it didn't feel like that when I started. And then so you would feel like you got these huge wins, but you did get audiences on your side, which was great. And I promise as I keep talking, I'm going to remember what the original question was, and I will bring it back. Touring. Yes. Okay.
Touring
yes.
Canada,
we'll get back there.
Comedic, and how that, I'm interested in that, how that life is and how it's set up. Like do you ultimately, does somebody come, like you got an agent, I would imagine, or no? Not for
Canadian comedy.
Okay.
I would say a lot of Canadian comics don't really have, I mean, I have an acting agent, but I don't have a...
So how do you set up, like how do you say, okay, you know what, I'm going to tour Canada?
You kind of do it yourself.
So you put something up on YouTube. Like how do you do that?
Yeah.
Tell me that.
So yeah, you just like, you get more known through like doing clubs. Like I feel like the club owners all kind of like talk and sort of know each other, and like you're just your name gets out there, and then you become somebody that they want to bring up to see. But when you can cut out the super long pause of me thinking.
That's all right. Go ahead. It's chill.
Like it's harder to, so now that thing that I was talking about of audiences like assuming women won't be funny feels gone now. Like, and I don't even, it just happened gradually, and then all of a sudden it was gone one day. And now I feel like we all just get to talk about whatever we want to talk about, and the audience, men and women, are not like presuming anything about you before you open your mouth. It's like they're open to you being funny or not. But when I started, it was like harder to get on the road as a woman comic because it's cheaper for a male headliner to bring a male opener because they can like share a room and there's like no weirdness. And people want to bring openers on that suit them, and most of the comics are men. So it's like harder to get those touring gigs as a woman. But also when I like think, and so now the game has totally changed because now it's all about like the internet exists, Instagram exists, and you don't have to appeal to like any bar anywhere. Like there was an idea with the older male comics when I started that it was like, if you can't crush a bar in Prince George, then you're not funny. Like if you can't crush a bar in the middle of nowhere, then you're not funny. But that idea never worked in reverse, that it's like, if they can't crush a queer room of like a really diverse audience, then like they don't think like that means that they're not funny. They're like, what a lame audience. So it's like that idea never worked in the reverse for them. And now I feel like that idea is gone of like, you have to be able to crush anywhere to be good at all. Now people can like be hyper specific and talk about exactly what they want to talk about, and their audience will find them online. And I think there's something really great about that. So touring's not
but you still have to tour. So as that process, so you put, like, let's just say you put a 30-minute thing special on YouTube, and then do you start making phone calls and saying?
Yeah, me and another comic, Kelsey Hamilton, she just put out a special, and I'm about to put out mine. And we're going to do like a couple tour dates throughout the summer. And we're just kind of like talking to comics we know in those cities and like figuring out what the venues are to play, and either like getting on shows like at actual like comedy venues, or like there might be some situations in which we're like just like finding like a small theater space and kind of renting that space, or a bar, and like putting something on ourselves. But really now like the landscape is so different that like you can and should tour. But you now that you can really find like your audience online, you can tour like exactly where you want to go. Like if there's somewhere you don't want to go, like don't go there, like whatever, like go wherever you want. And with podcasts now too, like touring used to be the only way that Canadian comics could make a living. They had to tour. And that sounds like honestly a pretty lonely life. Like you leave your family, you leave your partner or whoever, and then you're on the road with like an opener who's like a slightly newer comic than you are, maybe. Like they didn't really come up when you came up, so you're not like best friends. The best part of like doing comedy is honestly when you start, and when you're like making all of your buddies at the same level in the open mic crowd, and it's like you're out drinking every night, you're all writing all the time, you're laughing at each other's new stuff, and then you get better and better and better, and like slowly some of those people start to quit, and then slowly you get bigger and bigger gigs where you're on shows with fewer and fewer people, because now you're not on shows where everybody gets 10 minutes, now you're on shows where you get 45, one person gets 20, one person's hosting with 10, and then all of a sudden you're looking around and you're like, all my friends are gone. And so like to win at comedy used to be kind of sad and no reason, like no wonder all of us were depressed. But now it's like you can stay doing comedy in like the city you live if you really want to, and just keep putting up
the
clips.
whole process, the way you're explaining it to me, is it's in your hands.
It's in your hands. You can do whatever you want now. Like it's so open.
That's what the internet's done. It's opened up the doors and said, hey man, you'll find your audience. And if they like, why go to Prince George if
Prince George doesn't like you, you don't have to go to Prince George. There's also no hate on Prince George. Prince George is great. Like,
that's right. No, it's true.
It was just a random city name pull. But like,
no question.
If you're, I mean, especially like I don't really have like a fear in going to Prince George, but like I like, and I need to stop saying Prince George, but like, you know, like if I was like, if I felt like the place that I was if you weren't a straight white person and you felt scared to tour, that was fair. And you shouldn't be like shut out of being able to do comedy because it's literally like scary for you to like go play certain rooms. Like that sucks. And like comedy's better when there's more types of people doing it. And that just means that there's like a wider range of like comedy that you hear. It's so fun to go to shows now because everybody's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So roasting. Let's talk about roasting.
Sure.
You're from what I gathered, you're the queen of roasting here in Vancouver.
I don't know that I would say that, but I did hold the heavyweight championship belt for a few years in Vancouver Roast Battle community. I think I was like the 5-time undefeated champion, and then I just lost the belt because I stepped down because I felt I was ready to retire on top.
Retire on top. So that brings out. I wanted to touch on this because of your background on the roasting and that last roast that came out with Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
A lot of shit going on about that, like shit talking and how far can you go. And I watched bits and pieces. Roasts have always kind of like, because I grew up the Dean Martin roast where he was acting hammered and he was smoking cigarettes and they were like, I think 3/4 of the people that were on the roasting panel were hammered, and like you just watch drunk actors and actresses, whatever. But now I've always watched it. I remember watching when they roasted Donald Trump, and it was on HBO. And holy shit! Like I was going, Jesus! Like, and for me to go, Jesus! Like I can be like I'm in the ditch a lot of the time with my comedic thinking. But that roast, I didn't watch the whole thing in its entirety, but I did start paying attention. I did watch a 45-minute YouTube video on the shit talking that was going on after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay, and I wanted to throw that out at you and go, roasting. First of all, it's a roast. Okay, is there anything off limits when you're roasting? Like, is there?
So to me, no. Like to me, if you sign up to do a roast. And that's the thing is like everybody on any roast dais panel or like anyone who does roast battles where it's like, not unknown comics roasting each other. Like the second you sign up to do a roast, anybody can say anything. Like you have to be very comfortable with your face and body and very comfortable with all of the dead family members that you have and very comfortable with all of your past embarrassments and be willing to learn new things about yourself that you didn't know, that you either forgot or you're like, I didn't know my eyes were too close together, whatever. You have to be like, when you sign up, you're saying like, you're agreeing to have your feelings hurt in any possible way, but like the audience will decide what's cool and not cool. And I didn't watch the whole Kevin Hart roast. I only saw clips, and it wasn't really like my style of roasting from what I saw. I think that you can joke about anything as a comic, and especially in a roast, but like the audience will tell you if it is or isn't funny. And I hope that the audience, you also have to be willing to like stand by what you said. So it's like your risk to take.
Yeah.
And I hope that the audience isn't just like looking for the meanest thing. I hope they're also looking for the funniest thing. And there's a way to like hit really deep and also be really funny. I would say that my style of roast is like much more silly. Like I will be mean, but I'm going to do it in a very like stupid, silly way.
I love that. That's a clip right there. I will be mean.
I will be, because that's what this is. Yeah. But like if the joke, like to me, my favorite types of jokes are like very like playful and silly and kind of dumb and like, and so that's like kind of always the way I'll go about things. Usually when I write a roast joke, I'll like start with like a true fact about the person, and then like maybe like the punchline is like a very like silly, like kind of surprising like point about like a completely unrelated fact about them, but that like works as a joke together.
And it's important. And one thing I realized, and this is probably a little bit of ageism, but when my wife and I, we didn't watch the full roast, but a lot of times we were looking at each other. Do you know who the hell that is? Like who they're talking about? Because they're making fun of somebody that
we don't necessarily.
I don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so the joke's not really funny because I don't know, there was a black woman whose husband jumped off a bridge or something like
Cheryl
that.
Underwood.
Yeah. And I didn't know that until I knew that. And then she actually, from what I saw, handled it pretty well.
Totally.
And I went, okay.
And if your husband jumped off a bridge, like that's a really horrible thing that happened to you. But also, if you sign up for a roast, she knew. There's no way she didn't know it was going to come up. Even if she didn't get to see the jokes beforehand, like she knew that was going to be talked about, and I guarantee you, she like was fine with that. But you're right in that it's like, you can't just. To me, like the meanest joke isn't the best joke. The funniest joke is the best joke. And the funniest joke could coincidentally be the meanest joke, but it also might not be. But like, particularly in roast battles where it's just like two unknown comics against each other, but also on these like celebrity daises where some of them you don't know as well. Like to me, like the information, I think the joke works best if like the thing we don't know about them is like brought up in the setup, and then the punchline is like a joke that we now understand because we've been given the context before. But it's like, if the end of the joke is just, and her husband jumped off a bridge, like that is not going to hit as hard. The audience is going to be like, ooh, but an ooh isn't a laugh. And
so you're basically saying though that whatever's funny, if it's funny leads. Right?
You can joke about anything, but it better be funny. Because it's like, if it's so funny, you're going to get away with it. But if it's just saying the worst thing about someone and there's like almost no joke, then it's like, what are we doing here?
But
you can be very mean, especially in a roast.
Yeah.
And I think in general with comedy, like it is my general opinion that you can joke about anything, but like there's jokes that don't exist yet because like someone's brain hasn't thought of them yet. So to say like there's things that you can't joke about is like weirdly presumptive to me that no one's going to find a way to joke about that thing when like not every joke has been written yet. But I do think that like joking about difficult topics, you could talk about any topic, but I, as an audience member, kind of want like the way in which you joke about it to be a little bit indicative of like how you feel. I've seen this really interesting phenomenon in some comedy where like you'll watch a comic's joke and you can hear the audience laugh at the part where like Ari Matty has some jokes like this. Jeffrey Osmus has some jokes like this. He's not like an Austin comic guy. He's just like a guy that I kind of came to mind in thinking about this style of joke where like the joke is very layered and you can laugh at a lot of different levels of it. And some people are going to laugh at like part of the joke without getting that they don't mean this part. They're saying a larger part over here. And this is the part that's a really like insightful comment about the world. And they set it up with this part, not minding that it's going to put them at risk for a second. And then you'll get over here and it'll like have this like payoff where like really they were actually saying something quite progressive, but it was dressed up in something that sounded not so progressive at the beginning, but it's like half the audience is laughing at the joke as a whole and being like, wow, that's like what a cool point they just made. And then half the audience laughed at that first part because they're like, yeah, women do suck. Like, and so I think that like some people, I kind of see Shane Gillis like that. Like he's like willing to take the risk in the setup, and Ari Matty like that too. And then like the thing that they're actually saying at the end is like, a good and true comment about the world, but it's like not always the crowd is there for the whole part.
Has been, like from a cultural perspective, has been somewhat reflective over the last number of years of our society. I'm just going to make that comment. And the reason, when I first started watching it on Monday nights, it was quite it was out there, man. Like it was harsh.
Sure.
And my wife used to walk by and go, "What are you doing watching that crap?" To the point where it got to a point where she would be pissed off if I started watching it without her. Okay, now we're at a point where it's not like we're having conversations while it's on, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So what's happened is that like he's got a bunch of people, homeless people that are coming on stage and trying to talk for 60 seconds or whatever, and it's, I'm not going to say it's become redundant, but it's become tired to a certain extent. And it's easy, like opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, and I got one on this, but it's not nearly as funny as it used to be.
Sure.
And as well as it's become, in my mind, and for me to say this is a lot, it's kind of offensive. And I'll say that because it's really easy to punch down. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, and attempt to be funny and start talking about sexual parts, but it's not funny.
No, yeah.
It's not funny. Like what you just said isn't funny. And now one thing Tony is good at, he's quick with the roast shit, like that with his comments. He's quick with that. But I look at that and I kind of, I'm more cringy now when I watch it. And I don't know if that's just me and my wife, or that's just this shift that's taking, like, it's getting old. That shtick is old.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to follow that. And I look at even some of the people he has on his panel, I go, suck.
Totally.
Totally suck. And there's like the guy with the red hair and the beard, I can't stand him. I'm not watching this guy and going, he's not even funny. So like, and I know different strokes for different folks and that kind of shit, but it's almost reflective of where I look at it from like this big picture cultural thing where I'm thinking that cause he went on the Donald Trump rally and shit. Like,
yeah.
And I just, whatever, like you guys do whatever, because you got a president of the United States going to have a UFC fight on the White House lawn, but whatever, that's easy shit to talk about. But I digress when I start talking about that. What I want, this is like, I'm going to ask you this question. How come you don't have your own podcast?
Because some dumb guy sold me all the wrong equipment. Just, sorry, my ADHD brain is thinking about so many more things that you said just now. Well, it was interesting when you talked about like the cringe of it when you watch it now, because I do feel like that's like such a weird thing that has happened. Like comedy used to like classically be about like building tension and then there's a release. And then there is this weird faction of comedy where there's no release anymore. It's just like the tension. And the tension is supposed to be the funny thing, and we never get to lose the tension. I don't like comedy that makes me feel icky on the inside. And I think it's like the internet's good for people being able to find an audience, but then it's also bad because it's kind of like can make you like siphon into like getting more and more hyper towards just that one specific audience.
So is this your excuse as to why you don't have your own podcast?
I've completely forgot about the podcast thing. I'll go back to it.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm trying to tie it together here. That's all. That's all I'm trying to do.
I think it would be fun to have a podcast, but I think there's other things I want to work on first. Because I would want to do a good job, but I really have like, I think if I love doing shows. I love being on other people's podcasts.
And it sounds, I'm just going to try not to put words in your mouth, but put words in your mouth. Go for it. In that you just don't want to do one for the sake of doing one.
Yeah.
Because there's so many that are doing them and you go, okay, well, you really don't have anything to say other than maybe listen to yourself and talk to you want to have a podcast and talk about something that like maybe somebody's story or whatever it happens to be. But just to have a podcast and not have anything to say. And I think there's a lot of comedians. I think there's a lot of people. I mean, you could say me too. Like you could point right at me and go, what the fuck is he doing?
What the hell are you doing?
Exactly. Like it's easy. It is. It really is. And the barrier to entry is, okay, so you go buy some microphones and that kind of thing and find somebody that knows what they're doing and you can do it. But I don't believe that you have to have one. And it was just a question.
I think it's that like, it is work and it is time out of your week. It's a lot of time out of your week and a lot of work to be like corresponding with the guests and like doing the conversations and like thinking of like thoughtful topics to talk about. And like at the moment, it's fun. It's very fun to be on people's podcasts. I do love this. But at the moment, like being a podcast host is not like, there's other dreams that I have that I have not accomplished. And then this isn't like the top of my list of dreams. But like if it ever gets to a point where I'm like, I think having a podcast would really like make like, I've done everything else that I can do to try to achieve my dream except hosting a podcast and this might help. Let's throw it in.
No, I hear you.
And so maybe it'll,
So like,
don't quote me on never having a podcast. I very much might have one at some point.
So in kind of trying to like, we'll wrap everything up here and because we have, it's time flies and we could be talking for another couple hours. But what I wanted, the state of comedy right now, okay, you're 34 years old.
34.
Okay. Still a baby.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that.
Where do you think comedy is right now? Do you think we're in a healthy place or not as it relates to comedy?
I think we're like dealing with, I think we just came out of like a huge period of change for comedy in what we were talking about before of how now with the Instagram of it all, it's been so positive that like people with a really specific viewpoint that hasn't been seen a lot in comedy can now like find their people and like get their voice out there, because there might not be like a bar full of them in the middle of the country in every city, but it's like the people that everybody deserves to like have art made about them. And now I feel like everybody's getting that kind of for the first time, which is so great.
So that's healthy.
That's healthy. But then I don't love that the industry seems to put too much value on like social media followers and likes and like seemingly has these sort of like levels that they need you to hit before they'll now give you things, which that didn't used to be the case in the past. They used to take their job of scouting more seriously and like find people that are funny and then elevate them. Whereas right now that job has gotten a bit lazy where it's like people elevate themselves and then you just pluck them when they're already on that ledge. But the thing with that is that like for comedians realistically to get elevated is, well, one way is having a podcast and posting clips of the podcast. So that actually is a real point in the favor of podcasts. But another way is to post like stand-up clips, but people don't want to burn their material. So they're posting so many crowd work clips, which has now trained audiences into thinking that we want you to talk to us, which like comedy has always been like an energy exchange between you and the audience, but it's not supposed to be this level of conversational that it's kind of become. And I want people to come to comedy shows because they like want to hear new perspectives and to like think about things and think about the world in a new way and be surprised.
So what I want to close, Rachel, is I want you to plug some. What have you got coming up?
I have my debut special, an album coming out next month with 604 Records.
Okay.
And it's called I've Never Told Anyone That Before. It'll be on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube. And then my Instagram and TikTok are Rachel E. Schaefer.
Okay. Perfect. And upcoming shows live shows you have coming in?
Yeah, you can follow my Instagram for all my live shows, and there's some like tour dates that'll come out.
Acting, commercial gigs?
I just booked a commercial. I don't think I'm allowed to say what it's for, and also you're not even going to be interested.
You never know, but we'll make sure we put that in. Obviously there's going to be tags when we post this. Rachel, sincerely, I want to thank you for coming here. I really mean
thanks so much for having me.
It's a great conversation. And I know I always get into this thing about talking and we keep on going on and on and on and on.
I could talk forever. That's why I shouldn't have a podcast, honestly, is because I would not stop.
But I sincerely, I thank you for coming on Ship of Fools. It's where wit meets wisdom. I encourage, people to subscribe, listen, watch. Like I said, I don't believe that we celebrate what we have enough. I mean that in every form. I'm just talking about comedians. I'm talking about athletes. I'm talking about everything. I just don't think us here in Canada, we're too meek. Yeah. And I thank you for coming and responding to my reach out. So thank you very much. And I'm going to continue doing this whether or not people
Hell yeah.
watch or not. I don't give a shit.
CanCon for life.
That's right, man. So, Rachel, thank you, man. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
Okay. You may be asking yourself, what's any of this got to do with me? Absolutely nothing. Until next time.